Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to yet another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line Podcast. Got a cool guest today. I met him a couple years ago in person down in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I do have to tell you though that this episode is brought to you by Gunfighter Gun Oil, the finest firearm lubricant on the market. Off of that though, we've got Matt Callery, but not like the energy measurement, like calorie, like from the Emerald Isle.
Right. Callery
is
how they would say it over there.
Callery, but how do you say it?
I say calorie.
So why wouldn't you say it right?
I actually thought of dropping the Y. What?
Why wouldn't you say it right then?
Well, because I'm an American and I'm third generation American and it had been bastardized by the time it got down to me. So
all right.
Just say it that way. Enough. Yeah.
So real quick for the listeners, let them know who you are. So you run a podcast called Addressing Gettysburg. You also are working to become is it a license or a certificate?
It's a licensed battlefield guide. It's a thing that Gettysburg National Military
like the U.S. Park Service?
Yep. It's actually a federal law that in order to give a tour here in Gettysburg, you have to have a license issued by the superintendent of the park.
Interesting. Is that like to dispel misinformation? Is it like out of an honor for what happened there? Is it taxation?
No, it actually everything's about money, right? With the government. So yeah. But initially the law I believe was passed in 13, and it was brought about by the veterans of the battle who would come here and they would hear some local, maybe waiting at the train station and say, hey, I'll give you a tour. And then they go around and they start telling you about generals that weren't here doing things that didn't happen. And
I gotcha.
And, a lot of the veterans were still alive in those days. And they said, well, wait a minute, we don't want these people going around and, just trying to make a buck. It's okay to make a buck, but if you're going to make a buck, give the public the right information.
The truth.
And so they still had friends in Congress and whatnot, although they were old. So, the law passed, and so now ever since then you've had to have a license to give a tour here. So I think it's good because it's not to be confused with a park ranger. That's a federal job. Mm-hmm. This is a license to be an independent contractor and make a buck giving tours on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
And your rates are set and all that stuff. But I think it's good because it kind of guarantees the public a minimum level of reliable quality information.
Yeah.
And then really after that, it's depending on how much more research guides want to do to just better their own way. Because essentially it becomes your business. And so it's up to you.
People refer you. This guide's great. If you go there, see this guy, see that girl. Yeah.
Yeah. And what we do is I consider myself a host. I don't consider myself an expert on anything.
All right.
Except I'm probably an expert on dabbling. I dabbled with so many things that I've become an expert at it. I could tell you how to dabble and not really follow through on anything like nobody's business.
Matt, the pro dabbler.
That's right. But so what I do is I know a lot of people who are experts, and I'm not afraid to approach others that I don't know. And so I decided what I was going to do was do this podcast really to help me study, because just sitting and reading and taking notes, I've been doing that for 20 years. And so, I'm at this age where I just can't retain stuff like I used to. So I figured, well, let me make it fun for me. And I love doing podcasts. And so it just puts the two together. And so I started doing these narrative podcasts that are kind of heavily ripping off the Ken Burns Civil War documentary. Have you ever seen that?
You could say borrowing.
Okay, so borrowing. Yeah. Thank you. Borrowing the Ken Burns style. There's no video, there's no visual to it. It's all theater of the mind. So it's even a little harder to do is to paint a picture with words and sound effects and music.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Sure. Bless you.
Keep going.
So, I write these narratives, and in writing them, I have to do all this research to be able to tell the story. And that's essentially what guides do, is they are storytellers. So it's good practice for that. But the problem is it takes me anywhere from 6 to 12 months. Oops, sorry about that. It takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months for me to produce an episode, from research all the way through to editing and release. And I had to have
drilling into like a specific event on the battle or during the battle.
It starts actually 10 or so months before the Battle of Gettysburg, at the Battle of Antietam. Because the reason why Robert E. Lee comes up to Pennsylvania and the Battle of Gettysburg occurs is the same reason why the Battle of Antietam occurred in Sharpsburg, Maryland, almost a year before. He was invading the North for various reasons. He had political reasons, he had military reasons, but the big thing was supplies. You know, Virginia was ravaged, and his army was down in Virginia. And so he figured if he could go up into the lush North and take some of their crops and livestock and leather goods and whatever else he could get his hand on, then his army can subsist for another, 4 or 6 months or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So that was the goal. So I figured, well, we had to start at Antietam and work our way all the way through, so you could see what led to Gettysburg. Because, the war didn't start here, didn't end here. A lot of people come here thinking it was the only battle of the war.
Yeah.
It started and ended here, and that's why it's such a big deal, but it's not. There's so much more to that story. So it starts there, and I never really cared about the pre-battle stuff. I just want to get to the shooting, I would read about it.
Let me jump in for the listeners real quick. So just a little more backstory. So
sure.
War starts 1861, right? Like legit fighting. April-ish, 1861. It ends. It was actually after April by the time it was all said and done, but everybody always says April to April, 1861 to 1865. And I met you. My daughter and I came up. We were doing some training in Pennsylvania, and I came out, and you helped us get a freaking super cool electric bicycle to self-run around the park, which was one of the most magical days I had with my daughter, who's now an adult but was a teenager then, running around and visiting the sites on our own. But
great,
beautiful, one of the most beautiful bits of American countryside, Gettysburg.
Absolutely.
People that haven't been there, rolling hills, some small mountains. People out west wouldn't call them mountains, they'd call them hills. But big orchards and in open meadows and beautiful old growth forests. The place is quite magical. So that event, most of us only even know it. I know a little bit more than the average person, but most people only know about Gettysburg because of Lincoln's address there, and we learned it in grade school.
Right. Forced to memorize it.
I'm going to shut up, but I want to make sure people understand why we're talking about it and why it was such a pivotal point in American history, and of course the war, and why, what brought us to have this conversation.
It's an interesting, that question there. Why is it such? When we started doing the show, and I would have a guest on, if it was the guest's first time on the show, I would always start off with why Gettysburg, and then I would let their mind interpret the word why any way it would. So most people interpret it as a personal question. And they'll answer, well, it's just beautiful here. The story is so dramatic and blah, blah, blah. Some people will give you an academic answer, and, you say, why Gettysburg? And they go, well, two armies clashed here. There's 10 roads that lead into the town and blah, 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 blah. But it is a multi-layered question to answer. The answer to that is multi-layered. Why has Gettysburg captured the public's imagination so much? And it really starts days after the battle ends. This is this is a huge battle deep into Northern Territory. For those of you who don't know, Gettysburg is about 10 miles north of the Maryland state line. So, I could go to Northern Virginia in an hour and a half from here. So it's really not that far away from the main theater of the war in this region, because there were other theaters of the war. But it was accessible for people in the North, whereas all those other battlefields that they've been reading about in Virginia were not, because Virginia was a war zone. So it wasn't easy to just go down into Virginia. First of all, you're not hopping on an airplane and flying for 2 hours from New Jersey to Virginia. It's quite a journey. And even if you were to take a train, if you had to go through Baltimore was a city of split loyalties. The state of Maryland was. That's why it was a border state, and it was kind of like not with us, but not really against us, and we got to be careful not to piss them off because they might switch and go to the Confederacy. And right here at Gettysburg on Culp's Hill, there's 2 Maryland regiments that fought each other, and they were from. They had gone. One regiment had gone and given its service to the South, and the other one had stayed with the North. So, it's a very complicated answer to all of that stuff, as to the why and all that. But anyway, it starts right after the battle, where these Northerners are coming down to retrieve their son's body, or they know their son is convalescing in a hospital, and so they come down to take care of him and maybe take him home if he's ambulatory. So. They're also coming to gawk. People want to come and see battle damage. They're picking up souvenirs, rifles, whatever they can get their hands on. They're coming to see. So that right there, but also there's a guy named John Batchelder, and we recently did an interview with the former chief of interpretation here at the National Park. And we talked about John Batchelder, and John Batchelder was kind of like me, except he was successful. He was a jack of all trades. He did he was a photographer. He was I forgot what else he did. But one of the things that he had done was gotten permission to follow the Army of the Potomac, which was the Union Army that was operating in Northern Virginia in that area, and then fought up here. And he followed them around during the Peninsula Campaign, and McClellan was the commander then, and McClellan had this big army, and he never wanted to use it, and so he was removed from command, and the Peninsula Campaign was over, and Batchelder went back home. But he made friends, and he said to them, "Listen, if you ever have like the big one, let me know. As soon as you find out, just get word to me somehow, because I want to get down there and basically be the historian. Like that's what he wanted to do, is get a good history." And so Gettysburg happened. I think Gettysburg ended on July 3rd. I think he got here by the 7th. And he immediately started going around and writing the history of the Battle of Gettysburg. He was an artist, and so he made a map. They call it isometric map, I believe. And he would go into the hospitals. Now you have to understand, when this battle is over, this was a town of 2,400 people. Before the battle started. While the battle was on, add about 150,000 people to that, and about 70,000 horses and mules. And now the battle's over, and about 20 some odd thousand wounded are left behind. And every house, every barn, every church, every store, any shelter, a little lean-to or anything like that, was now somehow a hospital or a hospital-related structure. And so Batchelder is able to go around and talk to these wounded men. And those who were able to get out, he'd take them out on the battlefield and show me where you fought, tell me what happened. And he would take these notes. And he was really detailed and everything. And so he put together a history. He took that map of all the troop positions, and he sent it to General Meade, who was the commander of the army. after it was done, and he wanted him to sign off on it, and he did, and then it was sent around to all the corps commanders, which are the next level down of generals, and there was about 7 of them, so not all 7 were available to him, but everybody and anybody that was still in the Army of the Potomac who fought with him or fought here at Gettysburg, he spoke to, he had them look at this map and sign off on it or whatever. And I look at him as like the godfather of Gettysburg, because after he started getting the history all together, then he started writing these pamphlets on what to do when you visit Gettysburg. And so he's kind of the father of tourism as well. So he's a really interesting guy. Yeah. And so I think more than anything, that's one of the reasons why Gettysburg is a big deal, because immediately the historiography of it began and the myth of it began. And again, you've got that accessibility to the northern audience. You've got, I mean, it was a big battle. It was the bloodiest battle of the war, they say. So, I mean, there are those things that are very legitimate. And of course, Lincoln comes here in November of 1863 and gives the Gettysburg Address. And it's a speech, it's a political speech at the dedication of the National Cemetery here. And he's basically kind of, it's to me, it's the most beautiful piece of anything ever written. I think it's right up there with the Declaration of Independence in my mind.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah.
Good, because then we have a very long argument.
Yeah. that battle, I think in this day and age, we're so insulated from
horror.
Horror. I talk about it in this podcast all the time. We don't kill our own meat. Most people don't. I do. We're not burying our own dead. We're not, having to deal with the vicissitudes of being a living creature on the earth. And that's cool. We've created this system of roads and social nets and all these things so that we can have a pretty darn good life and not have to see too much crud. That battle and other battles in the war, if I remember correctly, and you'll have more insight, people would like take carriages out there from towns, right, to like watch. Let's go watch cannons cutting people in half. And
yeah, that comes from the Battle of Bull Run, First Bull Run in Manassas, Virginia. That was in July of 1861, and that battle dissuaded everybody that was there from ever doing that again, because they had. This is the thing: like, people had no idea what this was like. We have a better idea today because you have the. Vietnam was televised. Every war since then was televised. Now we have, and then Saving Private Ryan came out. For me, that opened my eyes as to what this stuff is like. And that was the last time I ever glorified war. I was 19, I think, when that came out. And up until then, I had watched, John Wayne movies, and it's all hoorah and flag waving and trumpets blaring and gallantry and all that stuff. And not that that stuff isn't real, but it's not the crux of what war is. War is ridiculous, senseless slaughter, and horror and hell. There's nothing pretty about it. And so Private Ryan opened my eyes to that. And then now we have YouTube and everything. You could see people getting beheaded and, whatever you want to see. And I think we're becoming a little desensitized to it. But back then, people had no idea what that was really like, to see, unless you were there. And so all these young men, and this is the thing about the Civil War that makes me so sad, is you read these stories of these young men. There's a man named Angelo Crapsey who was in the 1st Pennsylvania Rifles. And there's a great book about him called Pathway to Hell. And it studies his decline into what we would call PTSD today and eventually suicide. But it does it through his letters. He wrote a lot of letters. And it starts with examining his letters before the war, and then the beginning of the war, the outbreak of the war, and then beginning of his service, and first battle and all these things. And you can see the decline of his mental state and the mental state of people around him. And there's one letter where he describes his sergeant blowing his own head off because he just couldn't handle it anymore. And so it's so sad to me to read these stories because, you know, they're half my age, these guys. They're in their early 20s. I'm in my early 40s. And I had a good life in my 20s. And that's the time to live, is in your 20s. And that's when things are supposed to be good and all that stuff. And I was lucky enough where I had that. I didn't make any stupid decisions and get like saddled with a kid or something like that. You know, not that it's stupid to those of you who've done it, but for me, it just would have been horrible if I had done that. And so I feel very grateful that I had that. And then I hear these guys, they don't even get a chance to have that backward glance that I have now and look back at their 20s because they get snuffed out before they're 23 or 25. So that's very sad to me. But anyway, these guys, you know, it's a whole generation of these guys who are all hoorah when they go out there. And then the first fight that they get in, they have their eyes open pretty big. And it's the same thing with the public. There was one, I think it was a senator or a congressman at the outbreak of the war before it actually got to fighting. He gets up there on the floor and he says something like, I'll be able to sop up all the blood spilled in this war with my handkerchiefs, you know, or with a handkerchief. And it, you know,
not thinking that Americans would take up arms against each other.
No, I think at that point he knew. I think what he was saying was, this is going to be nothing. It's going to be a little brawl in the street, and the army's going to show up, and these Rebs are going to run home. And that was the feeling with Manassas. So a lot of these people, Manassas is like 20 to 25 miles from D.C. A lot of those people just got in their carriages and went out to have a picnic to watch the mighty United States Army kick the rebels' ass. But the United States Army was pretty green, and so were the rebels, but the rebels were defending their home. And the United States Army was not defending a home. They were just kind of going out on this weird little excursion.
Peace action kind of stuff.
Yeah. But it wasn't regular army. When the war broke out, our regular army in the United States, the standing army, was about 15,000 men in office.
Wow.
So that's not a lot. So Lincoln calls for all these volunteers after the firing on Fort Sumter in April of 61. And so April to July, not a very long time to muster all these men in and train them properly, and they certainly don't have the experience. Same with the officers. A lot of the officers didn't have the experience. So Manassas ends up being a Union defeat, and on the road of retreat back to Washington, aside from the army clogging the roads, the senators and their wives and all these, highfalutin dignitaries that came out to have a picnic are clogging up the road as well, trying to get back. And it's a big mess. So that wasn't a normal thing. Although there are stories here at Gettysburg, a bunch of young guys, probably early teenage years, the battle's starting west of town, and they run out to try to get a good look at everything. And one climbs up a tree to get a better view than his buddies, and he's up there for a couple of minutes until a shell goes whizzing past his head, and he goes straight down to the ground as fast as he's ever gone. So there is a curiosity. There's another story of two women on the balcony of the third floor, I believe, of her house, and from there they could see out to the battlefield. And a lieutenant's running through town, I don't know what mission he's on, but he's running through town, and he sees them up there, and he says, "Ladies, you better get inside, get into the cellar, get out of there." And they finally, I guess, they wait another minute or two, and then they take heed and go downstairs. And just as they go inside, a shell comes and hits the balcony that they were on. So there's a lot of close calls. And again, people don't really know what that was all about, and they don't know what that was like.
What was the story I remember reading? It was tragic. I'm remembering some sparse details of it. A woman, I believe, was she killed while making bread or something?
Oh, yeah, Jenny Wade. Jenny Wade was, she was a local girl. She was about 21 years old. And what happened was she lived on the south end of town. Her sister lived in a house a little further south, like on the southern outskirt of town. And she had just had a baby on June 26th. And she was not, she was a little frail. And so everybody was, over at her house, her mother and Jenny, and they were, taking care of her because she couldn't really be moved, as the story goes. And Jenny it was the morning of the July 3rd, I believe. And she gets up early in the morning to get a jump on baking bread. And she's standing in the kitchen, and the kitchen door is also the door to the outside of the house. And so, it's facing the Confederate line. The house that she's in is basically in this kind of no man's land between the Union and the Confederate lines. And there are skirmishers, which, for those of the people that don't know, you have your main battle line, which is like a solid line. And then you have your skirmishers in advance of that. And that's more of a thinner line where there's a big interval between each man. And that's just to give a warning and to kind of test and develop the strength of your enemy. So there's some troops in and around the house at different points. And a stray shot goes through the door. She happens to be standing right behind the door, and it enters her back and pierces her heart, and she drops dead on the floor. And they buried her in the flower bed later that day until they can move her over to the church cemetery that they belong to, which then she was later moved from there to Evergreen Cemetery, which is adjacent to the National Cemetery on Cemetery Hill here in Gettysburg.
Wow.
So she died. She's an interesting one. We've done a couple of episodes about Jenny Wade because she's had a reputation over the years, I think unfairly so, of being a kind of loose woman. But when you really look into it, there really is no evidence of that except for the fact that after she died, some petty people who might have been jealous of the fame that she got for simply dying would either hint at or just outright say she was a slut or a whore or something like that. And there really isn't any evidence of that. And I think that's kind of unfair for the poor girl, but
which if she was,
episodes. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did not change the fact that a young life was snuffed out.
Well, exactly. And one of the people that contributed to that was a man named John Burns. See, this is the thing that when you start learning about, and I get into these people a little bit in our narrative episodes, because they're so colorful. You start learning about the battle because it's all these massive troop movements and casualties and explosions and all this stuff. But eventually, there's these little people in this town. And every once in a while, when you're reading a book about the battle, they'll actually quote them from their journals about how they're perceiving the battle going from their basements or whatever. And you go, yeah, whatever. I'm like 19, 20 at this time. Like, I don't care about that stuff. I just want to hear the explosions and the gore. But as I got older, I appreciate these stories more. And John Burns, he's an old guy. I think he's about 70 years old. He was a veteran of the War of 1812.
I know this story. Keep going.
And he's not too pleased when the battle starts on July 1st that these dirty Rebs are, basically in his backyard. So he shoulders his old antique musket and goes walking out to the battlefield. And these younger guys that are his neighbors, he's trying to get them to come along, like as if it's a given that they're going to do it. And he'll say something like, "Come on, Broadhead, let's go out there." And Broadhead's like, "Oh no, I gotta go pick some peas from the garden, whatever." And then he curses them out and calls him a son of a bitch or something like that, and goes on out. And so he gets out to the line, and he meets the Iron Brigade. And, he works his way up to a colonel, and the colonel says, "Oh, yeah, go over there in the woods. You'll be safer," and everything. Well, he participates in the battle. He ends up getting shot like 3 times, and he's incapacitated. When the Union Army retreats from that position, he can't. Nobody takes him, and he can't get away on his own. But he's in civilian clothes, and he realizes that he could be hanged as a spy or something like that. So he tosses his gun and all of his accoutrements that would aid in the loading of a gun away as the Confederates are coming near, and they come over to him and, well, what are you doing out here, old timer? And he goes, well, my cow got away and my wife told me to go and find it, and you guys started shooting, and so they got him back into town and patched him up and put him back in his house. But he was very famous when Lincoln came here to do the Gettysburg Address. One of the first things he said was, I want to meet John Burns. So he was a celebrity in his day. But then as stories of the battle started to emerge and other people's stories got out there, Jenny Wade gets out there and, oh, it's tragic, this poor 21-year-old girl. And now people start asking John Burns when they're coming in about Jenny Wade. And he goes, oh, well, and he wouldn't, as far as I know, he didn't say she was a whore or she was a slut, but he would hint at it very not so subtly that she was. And so that's how that started. And there were women who would contribute to that idea as well. But we have letters of between her and her boyfriend who was off fighting for one of the Pennsylvania units. And it seemed that they were quite smitten with each other. And I don't buy the whole slut whore thing, but these letters that I'm talking about are within the last 10 or 12 years that they've surfaced. So up until then, we had very little stuff except for hearsay and very few written things by anyone around her story. But yeah, no, it's a sad story, but there's other civilians that died as a result of the battle, just not during the battle. She has the distinction of dying during the battle.
During the battle. Those kinds of stories, like the gossip and the townspeople picking at each other, I like those kinds of stories. I'm involved in social media and stuff, podcasts. And so I see comments, it's not like the good old days. People are rude now. Or like, are you kidding? We're nicer than we've ever been. Like, and you listen to those kinds of tidbits of history. Do you listen to the on YouTube? You ever see the show The History Guy? Ever?
I think so.
His name's Lance. I just had him on, but he's a history major and does a show called The History Guy. And we had an excellent conversation just about. We'll just look at the atrocities that happened during the Civil War, the things that one American citizen did to another, and you're like, we're pretty nice to each other right now.
We are, and I fear that we're getting there again, and that's one of the things that we try to do with this show is point out to people, because people they listen to stories or read stories about historic events, and I think they think it's fiction. Like sometimes they treat it like it's fiction or it's something that could never happen today. And so they kind of chuckle at some of these stories that we talk about that are examples of man's cruelty to man. And I think that's kind of an indication of just how good we have it in modern life, is that we don't realize that this ugliness and everything is really what life has always been for thousands of years. We've created this sterile, quote unquote, nonviolent life for ourselves really since World War II.
Yeah.
And it's a new thing in the history of the world. This way of living, and we've gotten so spoiled and so soft, and I think it's our uppance is coming, and it's going to be ugly. And so I always try to point out when I see a parallel between today and the Civil War, I always try to like just point it out. I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm not a historian. We get, I always have a historian on the show. We always have a licensed guide or a ranger or someone who's got some other kind of bona fides that I don't have. And they answer most of the questions, but I like to point things out to the audience, like kind of be the go-between between the academic speaking to them and themselves. And I'd like to point things out to them every once in a while and say, you see, for example, we did an episode last month about the Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War, which was, how Congress loves to do these committees and everything. And so it was some, like what do you want to call it? Like it was basically to see how the war is being conducted by the generals and whoever else and everything like that. So General Meade, who was the Union commander here at Gettysburg, was maligned and, by his subordinates. And long story short is knowing what we know now about what really happened, and then reading the testimony of these people and seeing where their lies are and seeing what their agenda is just through the lies that they tell. It made me realize like nothing has changed. There's nothing new under the sun.
Never.
And I don't care what party they're in. If they're in Washington, they're scum. If they're opening their mouth, out comes a lie. And it's that simple for me.
I don't know if I fully agree with that, because I've got some close friends that are involved in politics that I've helped get into politics. But
okay,
I think in the big scheme of things, I would agree with that about 97.5%.
Well, let me put it to you like this. I am open to being proven wrong, but I don't know personally many politicians. So it's harder for that to happen.
The real issue is like, and this is what I tell folks all the time, we have the government we created. We have the politicians that we hired. We have the representatives that we asked for. And it's like, just be ragged and raw about our responsibility in that. Like, as humans haven't changed much, I think, how we interact. We got phones, we got all this cool electronics, but we still, oh, she's a whore. Oh, that guy's a piece of shit. Like it's still the same. It's still the same thing. And
we're still shitheads.
Yeah, for sure. But we do have a great capacity to care about each other, though. We do have a great capacity. Look at I think a lot of people have a misconception that the Civil War was all about slavery. And I'll have you talk about that a little bit. And, according to some, that was just another point of contention between the North and the South. And there's so much, in some ways nowadays, there's a lot of people going back, taking slavery, which is a horrible, disgusting thing that has happened around the globe for all of humanity, not just here in the Americas. Take that out of the equation. And the Southerners were a lot of people that were just saying, get the off my back and let me do what I want to do, taking slavery out of the equation. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the bottom line is, and anybody that, okay, this is such a complicated, how do you answer this in a simple way?
And this is really like what politics is. And it's never just some clear thing like
but it is though.
See, that's the thing. When you study history, I always try to pull it back into what I'm living through today. So like when I study about the Civil War and I study or just read something about the politics of the era, and you can find some parallel to today and everything. And the more you read about that stuff, the more you realize it's complicated. We want everything to be packaged nicely. We want it to be black and white. Union good, Confederate bad. Well, I got news for you. None of them liked black people. None of them wanted black people to be free, or not. No, I shouldn't say free, but equal. And there's a great story here in Gettysburg, which I believe it actually took place in the 1840s. So this is before the war, and there is an abolitionist group that has sprouted up in the area. And there was a good population of freed blacks in our county and in Gettysburg. And so they heard about this and they said, well, that's nice of you guys. And hey, we'd like to join you. And the white people said, no. We don't want you guys to join us. Like, no, we don't want you to be slaves, but we don't want you to be with us. So they started their own, and it was called the Slaves Refuge Society. But today it's Union good, they're angels, Confederate bad. I don't think anyone in a war is all angel and anyone in a war is all demon. I think a war is for us to have, those of us who haven't been through one, especially, you really have to do a lot of imagining to even understand, just to accept the phrase that war is hell and really know what that means without having to experience it. So part of that is the toll it takes on a person physically or psychologically or whatever. And there's just so much to it that it's never that cut and dry. But anyway, so to answer your question, I say anybody who will tell you that it really wasn't about slavery, I think is trying to kind of just stick a finger in the eye of the PC crowd because they love to remind us about slavery. So it's kind of like a reaction to that. But all you really need to do, if you truly want to answer that question for yourself, Google the articles of secession from all the states that seceded.
Mm-hmm.
Google the Confederate States Constitution and read it. They put it into words. Look up Stevens, the vice president of the Confederacy. His first name escapes me. Why? Anyway, Stevenson, right? No. Well, I'll look it up. No, I can't. I don't have anything with me. But Google it. His name is escaping me at the moment. But he's the vice president of the Confederacy. And read what he wrote about slavery. Read what a lot of the politicians not only wrote, but said on the floor of the United States Congress or Senate about slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them went south. Some of them stayed in the north. But all you need to do, it's like, look, our Declaration of Independence, when we broke away from England, it stated what we believe and the list of violations that we felt were made against us by the king and the reasoning for us leaving. Well, the Confederate States did the same thing. That's what you do. If you're going to do something big like secede, you better give a good reason and you better let the world know it. So that's what they did, and it's all there if you want to see it. The problem is, I think, you have a lot of people who have ancestors who fought for the South, and they were poor, and they couldn't afford a slave if they wanted one. And so, great-grandpappy Cecil, he wasn't fighting for no slaves. Well, he might not have been fighting for the right to have a slave directly.
Right.
But if blacks were freed back then, they would be in competition with the poor dirt farmer. And so it's hard enough to make $1 as a poor white guy without the slaves being free. Now you're going to free them, and now I've got more competition? No. That's why up north, the Irish didn't really like them, because the Irish came here and they were like really not treated much better than freed blacks were treated. And they were in competition with each other for the jobs. So when the draft riots occurred in 1963, they were going after black people and they were hanging them and they were killing them and beating them. It was an ugly time in the country, north and south. People say, oh, we're the most divided we've ever been. And I keep waiting for them to say, since the Civil War.
Right.
But they
don't.
Right. They never do. But the Civil War, we're so divided that a man was elected president and half the country left. Basically, essentially. It's not, that's oversimplifying it, but
I got what
that's
you're
essentially
saying.
what it. So
make sure the point I was making is clear.
Okay.
Where I was going with that is, and it's about money. Without free labor, the cotton and tobacco made the South rich. That's where all of their wealth came from, the slave labor and the slave trade itself. So yeah, slavery was the heart of it, but they weren't fighting over keeping blacks enslaved. They were fighting over their ability to continue their way of life and make money off the profit of people that were working for nothing.
Yes. And don't forget that a lot of northern industries also indirectly benefited from slavery in the South, shipping and all that other stuff. There's a book, and I'm always bad with remembering titles, but it's about the North's complicity in slavery. And it's
people weren't saying I want slave-free cotton so I can make my denim. They weren't saying I want slave-free tobacco so I can smoke my pipe with a clean conscience.
Right. Right. And here's the thing. We were talking about this the other day because we have like a chat group on Instagram. And this issue came up, and it comes up every once in a while, and it's just such a complicated and uncomfortable thing to talk about because people want everything to be just so cut and dry, and it just isn't. But anyway, we're talking about how everybody thinks that, I hope we all know that slavery is a bad thing, right? But when I see people get all worked up over American slavery 150 years ago, that ended 150 something years ago, I know they're not. They're using it. They're latching on to a political wedge for modern politics, and I really don't believe that they understand the horrors of slavery, and that they don't. I don't think they're really against it, because then they would be against the slavery that's occurring right under their nose today in the United States, and not only that, but these things that we're talking to each other through, I mean, if it's not like slave labor by the strictest sense, the amount of money that they're getting paid to make these things is essentially slave labor. And, we don't hear this issue talked about anymore, but for a long time we were always having discussions about immigration and stuff. So people coming here, living in the shadows, not making as much money as they possibly could if they were citizens and all that, but it's cheaper, and employers like that because they save some money, so they hire them illegally. It's kind of like slave labor, except it's kind of not, because they're getting something, so technically it's not, but it's essentially a serfdom, like a lower servant class that we're allowing to exist. And I think they're all wrong. I think they're all bad. A friend of mine is very involved with human trafficking, being anti-human trafficking. And she tells me these stories.
She loves it. She's a big time human trafficker, big supporter of it.
She's really involved in it.
Yeah.
She's made a lot of money.
We're joking, listeners.
Yes, we are. She's very much against it, and she's outside of DC, and she's tried for years to get these politicians to give a damn about this stuff, because it's going on right. Like,
that opens up a whole nother discussion about people in power doing illicit and illegal things with.
But my point is that we should. I just hate to see people who are conditioned and not educated spouting off about things. And I'm not saying I'm the epitome of education. To me, an education is a thing that it doesn't stop when school stops. Like, it's something that you are responsible to do your entire life. And really, you need to do it while you're in school, because they're filling your head with crap anyway. So, when I hear people just spouting off bumper stickers about different things, I don't get involved anymore, because it just makes my blood pressure go up too high. But I just shake my head, and it's just kind of, I feel sorry for them. I feel bad for all of us, because we have to deal with people proud to be stupid.
And
the
that's part
inverse
of the
of
reason
that.
why.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's part of the reason why we started doing this podcast was because we try to do it in an entertaining way. And the Civil War is that great American epic. I mean, it really is. You know, Lincoln calls it the new birth of freedom and everything, but it really is. It's I think the colonial period was kind of our gestation period, and the birth of the nation was 1776 all the way up, and then the Civil War was high school and college, and it was a wild time. But we learned a lot of lessons, and we came out adults, and everybody knows adulthood is depressing and miserable and not fun. And
since the Civil War, we've had a lot of hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
anyway, so you were saying
back at, just looking back as what you're saying, it's again mirroring what we said a moment ago. You can start to see, it's like as a kid, I would think, how did people? I grew up in a home where, of course, things like racism, slavery, and the like were looked at as evil things. And I remember as a kid, like reading about the Civil War and thinking, how did that even happen? Like, how did we have a country where people thought it was okay to do these things? How did everybody not just look around and say, hey, we got to stop this? But then you go back further and read like the writings of Franklin and Washington and Jefferson and these guys, and people are immediately quick to say, well, they owned slaves. They did. It was really evil. And it was a weird dichotomy of thought, and that's not a but like I'm going to make an excuse for them. Just what you're talking about, people making these bumper sticker statements and stuff. Most folks just kind of take the totality of the world as it is around them and accept it. You pay your taxes. Kids go to school at the public school. I go to the mill or whatever the job is and punch the clock. And one day maybe I can retire and go to Florida a couple times a winter. And, we just accept that. And what I'm trying to get at is I think people don't really dig too deep, and they just, I'm going to save a few bucks, get some cable TV, enjoy a meal out with the wife once in a while. And people have always done that. It's your mom and dad didn't tell you that owning slaves was a bad thing. Well, why would I think it was a bad thing? I'm just going to come up with this shit out of the ether.
No, I know it's hard to, it's hard to make a difference. And I hate that phrase because that's another phrase that is often used for people that aren't really doing anything that makes a difference. Did you ever notice that? People are like, well, I just want to make a difference. It's like, well, but you're doing something that 30 million other people are doing. So how's that making a difference?
Mm-hmm.
But, we give
I
you
want
that
to be
phrase
something
to run
bigger
around.
than myself.
That's
another one like that.
I just want to change the world. Okay. Good luck with that. But anyway, but it's hard for people. Look, we have basic needs: food, clothing, and shelter. All the other stuff is gravy. And so, I mean, would it be nice to have a yacht? I would love that. But do you know how much work I'm going to have to do to get to the point where I can get a yacht? I mean, how the hell? I don't even know where to start, let alone how to do it after that. So like, most people just need the basic things, and and by the time 3-5 o'clock rolls around, you just want to go home, eat your dinner, plop down and watch TV or read a book and go to bed because you're tired. At least, when you pass a certain age. Young people, the problem with them is they're so full of piss and vinegar, but they don't have any brains. And so the problem is older people with ill designs come along and recognize that, and they get them all riled up over a bad idea. And I think that's one of the things we saw, in 2020, this all this insanity going on where violence is allowed and permitted. And, it's just.
Which brings up another point, something I've been talking about a lot the last 6 months, and people hate that I say it because they think I'm dismissing it. Look at the riots of 1919 in the United States. They were way worse than what happened this past year. And it was all race related, and it was mostly white people burning down black people's homes, burning down, neighborhoods, killing, hanging, lynching, shooting, and destroying people. But hey, don't talk about that. That was, that was, that wasn't on my time.
Well, why do they get mad at you for talking about that? Because that should bolster the.
I mean, it can be, I guess, a phallical argument. It's not like I'm saying this is okay because that happened there, but I bring it up when people say, and this is the point that we're going to get to. It's getting to the point, man, where, thugs are going to be thugs, and the boys I serve with are going to start throwing down. You start hearing that, where guys are going to
Boogaloo boys.
Yeah, Boogaloo boys. Yeah, exactly. And I get the frustration. And you have every right to be frustrated. Violent crimes in cities or anywhere shouldn't be allowed. We should stop that shit from happening. But to suggest ignorantly it never was this way is bullshit. And I'm often chiding people. Last point I'll make, like guys younger than 40-ish, and I'm not saying that because you and I are older than 40. They assume that for all of our republic, guns were like this easily accessible thing, and everybody walked around with 6-shooters strapped to their hips. That's kind of my thing in studying history. There were anti-carry laws and concealed weapon laws as far back as the late 1600s in the colonies and throughout all of our existence. So it's just the last 30 years.
The gunfight at the OK Corral was all over guns. Yeah. They weren't allowed to have guns in town, and they had guns in town.
So these guys look at that and they see something as an infringement, which it may very well be. But to assume it's all new is, I think, where the fallacy is when you look back and say, oh, wait a second, we've been doing this shit to each other forever. It at least gives some perspective.
Well, that's the problem with the education system, is that they're not teaching real history. They're teaching I mean, I guess if I want to be extreme, I could say propaganda, but it's not history. I mean, somebody was telling me that they studied First World War, Second World War, and Vietnam in 3 weeks.
Oh, that's easy. Yeah, totally.
In their history class. So a week for each war. And, I know like in the younger grades, it's going to be more of a general history and all that stuff. But we spent a lot more time on those subjects when I was in school. And, whatever. I hate to sound like an old person going, well, in my day, we did this, that, and the other thing. But it was true. And we also were taught how to think critically. And I think it's because of that critical thinking that we have that these kids today lack, because they don't teach them how to do it. I think that's why people go around thinking like it's never been this way before, and it's always been this way before, like you're saying.
I'm looking something up here. I'm not playing on my phone. I'm listening to you. Keep going.
Yeah, you're playing Candy Crush over there?
No, I'm looking something up about Socrates. Socrates.
Oh, okay. Socrates.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that
the problem with everything is just that we're not educating our youth. We're making them into, I hate to say this word, but future slaves, because they don't come out with this ability to think critically or understand that there is a world that existed before they were born. And it's really, if you have, I think it's up to parents to counter, to kind of be like, what'd you learn at school today? And then they spout out some, vomit, and then they go, okay, well, here's why don't you look into this, son? Or here's what really happened, or whatever. Like, there needs to be a counter to what is being taught in the schools, I think.
Which again is a we the people problem. Like, I've helped some guys run for school board. Governors appoint people on state school boards and Department of Education and things like that. It's a problem when academia begins to make all the rules, and that's happened a lot.
Yes.
And there's some people that think that the position we're in right now is the cause of us handing over education to academics, which there's many smart people that go ahead.
I think that. No, I was going to say, I would agree with that. I mean, it's more than one thing, but that's one of them.
Socrates made me think of this. I was reading this the other day. He hated democracy, and he hated democracy because he said, basically, whenever anybody can vote but doesn't appreciate, and this is me paraphrasing, what their vote means, like it's just lunacy. And that's actually why he was killed, right? They said he was polluting the minds of the youth with these ideas, and all he was really doing was spurring the kids to go educate themselves so that they understood why they were voting. But then our founders here, that was not just pre-colonial times, you had to kind of be like somebody of some means to have a say. And I think we look back and erroneously think that you had to like have money to do it, but it was, in my opinion, if you had some means, it took something to get the means, which meant you had some kind of brains in order to, to have the big ranch or the property or the shipping business or whatever. But I think we too lightly appreciate, fuck, I ain't gonna vote. It doesn't do any good. All right, well, that's pretty dang tragic.
Yeah.
Pretty dang tragic.
It's almost like it's kind of what they want people to think. Like they want people to get that way, so that it's just a few people voting and they're a lot easier to sway. But no, you mentioned a point about like if you get the big ranch, it's. I think the point you were making was that you got that big ranch because of decisions you made and work that you put in. Is that where you were going with that?
I think. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch. Somebody could say, "Oh, you stole that," or slave labor, etc. Broad picture is that I have a pretty simple way that I view the world. Leaders lead, and this isn't like, I'm not meaning leaders like politicians. The guy that runs the gas station.
Actual leaders.
Yeah, the girl that's in charge of the school, the guy that runs the airport, whatever. Leaders lead. Yes, people are put in leadership positions incorrectly, such as the generals that Abraham Lincoln continually was removing from their positions throughout the war. But for the most part, people fall into those positions because of cause and effect. I did this, and this, thus, this happened. And we all know people that like, seems like doors continually open. I have a friend, he and I are very similar in our business practices, and people will ask like, how did you get to meet that guy? How did you get to meet that person? I call them on the phone or I send them an email, and they're like something as stupid as like, oh, could I really do that? Like, but you can't just email somebody, and people just don't give themselves enough credit. Keep going.
It's I love that you brought that up, because I had this conversation on a show we did not too long ago. I forget exactly what it was, but it was like a year in review, and a lot has happened for our show in the last year. And there's a movie called Gettysburg. It's based on a novel called The Killer Angels. Yeah, it's a great movie. We had
ruin it and tell me it's all fake or incorrect.
No, actually, for a movie based on a novel, it's very good. There's a book called A Killer Angel's Companion that was written. It's more of a pamphlet. It's rather thin, but it goes through the killer angels and kind of just juxtaposes it to reality. So it's like, it'll tell you a certain character didn't exist, which I won't tell you if I don't want to ruin it for you. So, there's one character in that movie who didn't exist. He's actually the voice of the author of the novel. So he created a character to kind of get his own opinions out there and everything. And, just other things, like composite characters or condensed timelines and things like that, because you have to do it to move a story along. But No, the movie Gettysburg, the novel, they're very good history-wise. The Michael Shara was very into the history, and he just wanted to do a novelization of it. But what was my point? Oh, so we were talking about all the things that have happened for us over the last year and a half since we started the show. And, one of the things we talked about was how I have 3 of the actors from the movie who read quotes for my narrative episodes. And one of them actually read quotes of the character he played in the movie. So he kind of reprised his role. Although now he's like 84, so it's he's 84 playing a 32-year-old. It's not exactly history, but it's popular history, so it's cool to do. And I was saying, people ask me, like, how do you get these guys to come on? Like, they think that because I kind of came out of nowhere and started doing this, and very quickly, like, got a following going, and like, we're going to be on the Today Show sometime this month, and
Cool.
It's working for us
somehow, and everybody thinks there's some magic or like I have some like deep connections because I just seem to like just appear and start doing these things, and the reality of it is I changed my mind. Like, I changed my mindset about everything. And
what do you mean?
Really is this?
I mean, I think I have an idea where you're going, but I want to hear you say it. I used to say it, Matthew.
I have since I hit puberty, I've struggled with depression. And, ups and downs, and for the most part, I would say I had a good life in spite of it and everything. But just a series of events happened, and most of my 30s were wasted being depressed. And I have a lot of sympathy for alcoholics and drug addicts because, when you have this monkey on your back and you can't do the very simple things that most people are doing with their lives, and a lot of people around you who should love you and care for you and recognize that there's a problem. They may recognize there's a problem, but they're getting frustrated with you, and they're saying, why don't you just get a job, or why don't you just do this, or why don't you just do that? Not realizing that the very act of getting out of the bed to take your morning piss takes so much effort that, going and putting yourself out there with a job application, for example, where you're risking rejection. Like, no, that's not going to happen. It's really miserable. And I got to a really low point, probably the lowest point you can get to. And, there was still that little something inside of me, that divine spark that we all have, that was screaming through the cloud of depression. It was screaming, no, live, like, keep going. And luckily, I was listening for that one moment that it broke through the cloud. And I said, yeah, this is no way to be thinking. I should not be thinking that there's the only way to fix my life is to end it. So I went and I demanded. I didn't ask for help. I demanded help. Like, I had lunch one day with my father, and I said, listen, I'm thinking this stuff. And his reaction when you confront him with uncomfortable thoughts or things, his reaction is always, well, I don't talk like that,
What's that, a cheeseburger, Matthew?
Yeah. But I said,
no, you can't say don't talk like that, because a year from now, you're going to regret that you said that. I have to be firm. I have to tell you that I really need you to listen to me, and I need you to help me figure this out, because I don't know what to do. And he did. And long story short, and then like 2 weeks later, my cousin died of a heroin overdose. And it was at his wake when I saw, it had to be 1,500 people that came to this wake. And he wasn't, he wasn't anybody famous. He was young. He was 32, so you're still talking to a lot of people you went to school with and you grew up with. But apparently the heroin community is pretty big in that area as well. So they all kind of came in all a wreck of themselves. But I remember having conversations with him where he, expressed to me that he didn't, and this was years before he died when he was young. And he expressed he didn't really think that he was going to go anywhere in life. He didn't think he was worth anything in life. He thought he was, kind of in the way for everybody. He just didn't find his niche, and except substances, and heroin was his favorite. Yeah. And so anyway, I remember looking at him in that box, and I'm imagining him floating up over his grave, or over his body, looking at the room, and then zooming out through the roof of the funeral home and looking at the line of people wrapped down the road to see him one last time, and him thinking, "Holy shit, they did love me, and there's no do-over."
Mm-hmm.
So right then and there, I said to myself, whatever you do to fix this, ending your life is not on the table. So man up and figure it out. So I did.
You drew a line.
And
yeah, I drew a line, and I said I made a conscious decision to manage my depression and my anxiety, because you're never going to get rid of it. It's always bubbling under the surface, just waiting for you to let your guard down.
I disagree. Really? I mean, I suffered from chronic anxiety from the time I was a child, which is another story altogether. And not everybody's experience is the same. So I can't speak to anybody else's, but I've got some family members in similar situation, and some of them are not okay. And I do agree from the sense of we're wired up when we're little kids. Our brains are getting wired, and neural pathways and all that shit is happening until they're in their 20s even. And I think if our map gets wired up with fear and anxiety and depression and abandonment and abuse and whatever the hell goes on when you're a kid, you do have that map. But you change the narrative in your head to where somebody doesn't look at me the right way, I don't feel less than. Somebody's aggressive towards me, I don't respond with anger unless needed. And you begin to, you got to change that voice in your head. Sounds like you did. Yeah. I don't want to get preachy.
But that's what I call managing it. Because I think it's always, I'm like one tragedy away from it all coming back. I'm one rough patch away.
I wouldn't even say that to myself. I would say I can conquer any tragedy or challenge in front of me, because I've learned that those are just the tides of life, and eventually I'm going to go to the grave and the worms are going to crawl through me, and that is freeing as to think about.
Yeah, that's a good point. But how long have you been at it?
3 weeks. Oh,
no, you haven't.
Years and years. But I think, to your point, I'm not arguing.
Years and years. I've been doing this for 3 years. I changed things 3 years ago.
Sounds like you're going
it's still new to me.
I think that little voice in our head, we can tell him or her to say whatever we want, and eventually that does become our reality. And most people's realities are crafted by that voice, and they don't believe anything different, and they don't even think about what that dude's saying. And they just let it roll, just let it roll.
I agree. And that's my point, though, is that I think that 99% of people's problems are self-inflicted.
Yeah,
because,
I agree.
And maybe it's because that's just the way it was in my case. But I really do, because when you talk to someone who's, playing victim, and you really get down to talking to them, and you get them to open up, you find that everything goes back to them. It all goes back to even with people who have been done wrong, who truly are victims. You can't get yesterday back, but you can make sure that tomorrow doesn't suck as bad as today.
It's a ragged responsibility for your own life is all that it comes down to.
Because people are going to be
nothing
shitty.
Changes until I make it change.
Yes.
The way I started viewing it was like, I love the outdoors. You go anything in nature, when it's not growing, it's dying, and the rest of nature overtakes it. A beautiful oak tree, like the ones that are all over Gettysburg, some of them, like when I was there looking, I put my hands on, I forgot where it was, but there was like a last stand of a group of soldiers that died up in these trees, and there was a monument for them up off the road a ways. I forgot what the name was, but these trees you could see was like, these were here 100 and something years ago. These trees were here, like they saw this, and like they were watered with dude's blood. Like, that's crazy. But eventually, and they soaked up the life force of those men and the people that are buried all over that place. But eventually those trees fade away too. So you're either growing or you're dying.
Sunrise, sunset.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
I got preached for a minute. I'm sorry. You were going somewhere. You were talking about.
I was saying that
so what I was getting at was that I changed my attitude. I changed the way I thought about things. I realized that no one is going to look out for me as well as I can look out for me. And so I started to stop sitting around waiting for something to happen. I also reevaluated, like, what have I been chasing all this time? Like, and I was chasing a pipe dream for like way too long. And so finally I readjusted my sights, and I aimed at something that was more attainable and started working towards it. And this podcast was part of it. And it's taken me to places, and it's introduced me to people I never thought I would meet. And so these guys from the movie I was talking about, people are like, how do you get these guys to like come on your show and do this and do all this stuff? And there's some kind of magic formula that I've got or whatever. Or are you sitting on a pile of money and you just pay them? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, how do you do it? And I go, I ask them. And it's really that simple. Because, look, you still have to have a good idea. You still have to have something that people want to get involved with.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have that, then it's really simple to just say, hey, would you like to do this? And most people will say, yeah, or they'll at least consider it. Most people, even Hollywood actor types, they're regular people. They do want to,
regular people
be nice to you
that earn absorbent amounts of money.
Well, not the ones I work with.
that earn ass tons of money pretending to be. I always call them overpaid court jesters. I'm sorry, I just gotta say it. I got some.
No, I know what you mean, and the thing is that the guys I'm talking about are, I'm not. I know what you mean, and I feel the same way. We're talking about the big wigs when we talk about them like that. These guys here are working actors, like they're not getting $20 million a picture. Yes, they're actually actors who know how to act, and they're filmmakers or whatever, and they're genuinely nice people, or at least they are to me. I don't know, maybe, but no, that's not true, because I've seen them be nice to other people. But that's the thing, is the mindset of the person that goes, wow, how did you get him to do it? Like, to me, that is like, okay, well, I get that, because I used to think that way. I used to think small. I used to think that I was small. But really, at the end of the day, like you say, the worms are going to eat me. Just like they're going to eat,
Robert De Niro.
Alexander the Great, the pharaohs.
Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
They're
presidents.
all worm food.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that is the great equalizer, right?
So if in death we're all equal, then maybe in life we actually are too. And I think today, with social media, it gives a normal person like me a little bit of an advantage over someone who's got some modicum of
idea, Matt.
I mean, an unknown person like me.
You're in a closet with a bandana around your neck, talking to me. Yeah,
I'm in
get
a
it.
shed.
You're not
I'm
even
in a
wearing
shed
it. Neither of us have pants on.
No, I have no pants on, and this is my heat. This is my heat right here.
Oh, you are outside.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, we have.
We made half of the Getty's bike. That's the name of the bike tour company, by the way. We made half of the Getty's bike office
Shed.
The podcast room.
A
Okay.
studio, yeah, and the other half is bike office.
I like it.
So anyway, yeah, I don't know. That's what I would always say to people when they ask me, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I just tell them, like, stop thinking small and stop thinking that you're nobody. Like, people want to help, especially if it's a younger person. Like, people want to help younger people because we wish that we had an older person to maybe help us in a certain area that we didn't get help in or something.
Right on.
And so, if a young person comes along, I'm happy to help them. The problem is, that old saying, you could always tell a teenager, but you can't tell them much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, young, that goes into your 20s as well. So, you can get somebody that's going to come along and say, hey, I really love what you do. Could you teach me how to do it and everything? And I can tell them every little thing to do, but they're still going to do something different.
And that's
But that's
their
just
choice,
human
not
nature.
yours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But and I've done the same thing when someone older than me mentored me. We all do it. We have to find our way.
Advice. I started my first business when I was about 22, 21 years old. And my father's friend, I had a wife, I had a baby and a mortgage. And my dad asked his friend, like, talk some sense into this idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. And the guy called me, and he's a nice guy. I've known him since I was born. And he's like, you know what you need to do? You need to go get a regular job and start. And this guy was an entrepreneur, super successful. He's, told me good advice that you would give to a young man in the position I was in. And I was like, you're a fucking dummy. That was like, and I struggled for a decade. And looking back, his advice would have been perfect for a happy life.
Right.
Like this, except all of the stupid shit I did for 10 years. Now, like, one, you punch me in the head and I'll smile at you. And then two, I learned so much that like it everything worked out the way I wanted it to, but he gave me great advice, but I didn't listen. I was literally like,
What was your business when you were 21?
I had a couple. I'm a carpenter by trade. I haven't been in the trades in years, but I'm a 5th generation carpenter. I had a tree service. I had a construction company for years and years and years. I did all kinds of stuff like that. But yeah, I felled trees for a long time, clearing lots. Did some heavy landscaping type stuff,
Okay.
Pavers, things of that nature, concrete work. But, it's hard enough making a living doing those things, just going to work for somebody, let alone being a kid and doing it. But, I learned how to sell. I marketed. I never, freaking went door to door, handed flyers out. Like, I'll cut your grass, I'll shovel your driveway kind of stuff, and learned how to grow a business. But point being, the person has to be willing to hear it too. And
that's the big thing. You got to be
information that any of us need is out there.
Yes. When did you start doing carry trainer?
About 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What
I was
made you get into that?
I was involved in politics, lobbying for gun rights here in Illinois, which our listeners have heard me talk about this, but I'll be brief and you and I can talk about it offline. Got involved from that into basically running campaigns for pro-Second Amendment candidates, from county level elected officials to state level elected officials. Ended up becoming the vice chair of a political party here, raising money. We raised a ton of money and helped governor get in office, helped a lot of people like state reps and Congress people get in office, and learned a lot doing that about communicating and organizing and messaging and things of that nature. So one thing kind of leads to another. I'd like to do the things that trip my trigger.
Yeah, I can't decide if I envy the people that work at the same company for 30 years and, retire with a good severance package or whatever, or the people that are able to do what you have done and what I've been doing, where you kind of just do your own thing. And I don't know what's more satisfying to me, this steady paycheck, because I've had that, but I was miserable. But then I've done my own thing where the income fluctuates, but I was as happy as a pig in shit. And I think to me, it's what I'm doing that's more important.
Yeah. What do you want out of it? William James, as you were talking about earlier, the psychologist, he said, the greatest discovery of my generation is that a human can alter his life by altering his attitudes. I read that as a 20-something-year-old and was like, that's pretty cool. You know, and as I get older, you hear that and it's like, yeah, you know, like that's like Oprah is quoted as saying that. She didn't say it. She probably said it, but it was William James that said it. But people like Oprah knew that too. And I think it does come down to something that flipping simple. It's a conscious choice. I'm going to attack the voice in my head and make him or her say what I want him or her to say until it says what I want it to say on its own.
And it's also ignoring other people's negative voices too, because you're always going to have people, and I mean, these could be people that love you to death, like your best friend or your wife or your mother or father or whatever, and they're always going to be that voice of doubt. And they may not say, I doubt you can do this, but the question they ask.
Do you really think that's a good idea, Matthew? Yeah. You know how this went last time. Well, you talked about a moment ago, death being the great equalizer. So perhaps in life we're equal. The first thing I thought about is something that I'm sure you'll agree with. What stops most people isn't that they don't have opportunity, because most of us have to create opportunity. And yes, some people are handed opportunities, but it's fear. Well, I don't want to do this and fail. I don't want to do this and look like an idiot. Or I don't want to. Remember the movie Dazed and Confused? Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember the scene when they're in the car, the two dudes and the girl with the nice curly hair, and they're talking about, they're all full of angst because high school's about to end. Nobody knows what they're going to do. They got all the pressure of the world and their parents. Right. And the kid in the back seat, they're like, what do you want to do? And he's like, looks out the window and goes, I want to dance. You know, like, and they're all like he wanted to become like a dancer. Like he just like imagine if we told our dads, like, yeah, I'm going to, you know, pursue jazz dance. They'd be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. Jazz.
You know what I mean? But what's wrong if you do? Because you're worm food anyway. Like quit. People laugh at me because I'll say off the wall shit. And I literally, people say this all the time. I don't care what you think. No, I literally don't give a shit what you think. I don't want to offend you or like, you know, or you know, hurt your
feelings or
or something like that. But like if you're like, oh, that guy's a weirdo or he's a loser, I don't care. Like literally, I don't care.
I'm getting to that point too, where I've seen it happen in the last year or so with myself. Is I used to care more what people thought or said, and then I just realized that it wasn't getting me anywhere thinking that way. It actually paralyzes you.
No rent space in my head, man.
No, right, and that's the thing. And then I found that it was much more satisfying to live rent free in someone else's head. And so when I was able to go from being like, well, why did they say that about me? To, oh, I must be doing something right because I'm living rent free in your head, and I haven't said a damn thing about you, and you're not even on my radar, but I'm clearly on yours, and I'm getting under your skin by what I'm doing because you're going out there and criticizing it. Whatever you do, just do the best whatever that you can do, and usually it'll be good enough.
It's a good way to be. It's a good way to be.
I mean, yeah.
You're never going to be the absolute best. Everybody's not going to love you. You know, it never happens. Nobody ever wins 100% of the vote. Legally.
Mm-hmm. True. I have plenty of people that enjoy our content, and I have plenty of people that send us messages like, your voice is annoying. Signed Larry, you know, like I'll get shit like that. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Your name is stupid, Larry.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry to bother you. Yeah, that's funny.
Well, I don't understand that either. Even at my most negative, I never went out of my way to tell somebody that their voice is annoying or I can't stand listening to your podcast. Like, what?
Kind of petty.
Just don't listen. Yeah, it's insane. It's beyond petty. Like, it's.
I think it's just people trying to be heard, and they don't know how to. They don't know how to. You know, get their voice out in front of the noise, you know? So like, there's a way I can, it looks normal for me to inject myself into that space and write something or say something. It's nobody's going to like whack-a-mole my head down. I'll just kind of be able to be seen or heard. That's kind of the way I look at it. I could be wrong.
Whack-a-mole is a good analogy. That's what they're like. They just pop up to be annoying and then you
Yeah.
Should have killed yourself, Matt.
Right. Yeah.
You should have finished the job. No, not too soon. No, I'll be the first to make jokes about myself. And that's the thing is we don't joke anymore. Like people don't know how to joke. They don't know how to laugh at themselves. I can't stand people that go through life taking everything so seriously that they don't know how to laugh. They don't know how to smile. They don't know how to like poke a little fun at themselves or take it when someone pokes a little fun at you, you know, like, or they just, I don't know. Everybody's running around looking for ways to be offended and to be, a victim now. Everybody, you know, it's like when did we go from Americans to Americants? You know, it's such a cheesy thing to say, but like
it's true.
But when did that happen? Why did that happen? Like it's terrible. We were the people that said, "Oh man, this is going to be let's go. Let's get it over with."
Just talking about the Gettysburg, how they moved things, or well, we got to chop a road through a 700-year-old forest so that we can get 200,000 people through there. Like, let's get after it. Yeah,
just do it.
Yeah, that was the thing, I think, with Sherman's army down later in the war down south when he was cutting a path through Georgia. I think once he got to the sea, then he cut north to go into South Carolina, and the Confederate Army thought, well, we've got some time because I think it was I want to say it was early spring, so it was the thaw, a lot of mud and all that stuff. And they said, well, he's stuck in the mud for a while until this, you know, hardens up and everything. And they just built corduroy roads and got the army through. And the Confederates were like, so, you know.
Whipped them, like moved them.
Yeah, like you got to just go. You got to go. My motto for 2021 is find the loophole. Because there's always a loophole, no matter what's, you know, in front of you. And if 2020 is an indication of what we've got to deal with in 2021, which I'm guessing is going to be worse, with lockdowns and all that stuff and restrictions, find the loophole. That's what I'm going to do. Is always find the loophole, because there's always a loophole.
Find a way.
Well, yeah, loophole. It's a
loophole to me sounds creepy and like Wall Streety. Oh, I found a loophole, Matthew. We don't, you know, we can get out of doing this or that.
But it is like, you don't fight creepiness, which is what's been foisted upon us in the last year. You don't fight that creepiness with kindness or pleasantness or whatever the opposite of creepy is. Like, you got to get creepy back.
Haven't you ever seen The Grinch?
For them.
The Grinch was won over by love.
Okay. The Grinch, the government is not anything that can love.
You understand? So
that's what I'm talking about, is you find the loophole around what they put up in front of you, because you know that they have written loopholes into those rules and laws for them and their friends. So you find out what it is and you do it yourself. I don't know. There's find a way. Okay, fine.
Find a way.
You can have your own. I'm just coming out. That was mine.
No, I know, but you seem hell bent on making it find a way And actually, the more you say it, the more it actually sounds better to me now. Because you're right.
You ever read the
loophole is
story
kind of sinister.
of how Washington sent troops up to Fort Ticonderoga to get the cannons in the winter? You know, like that story, however many 100 miles through the wilderness those guys went, and then there wasn't much of a fight when they got there. They take the cannons and like shit's falling through frozen creeks, but like the cannons are freaking as big as like
huge
trucks, and these guys drug them with oxes through the mountains, through the Adirondacks, through like
no paved roads. You know, they're on like paths.
Now, like you can't get a parking space too close to the front of the store, and you're like, I guess we're not going shopping today. We'll come back and try tomorrow.
Time to go home. That's right. Yeah. No, you're right.
We're not going to make it.
They had and by the way, they didn't pull those cannon on wheels. They pulled them on sleds.
Sleds, yeah. Which they probably made when they got there.
Right. So they made these sleds and then they dragged them down, and it wasn't all snow. It was over rocks and mud and stuff like that. It's amazing what man can do when you really don't have a choice, and we can do a lot of things that it just, the way modern life is, it makes it it's a conscious decision to go and, go for a hike or like, like you were saying earlier, that you kill your own food and eat it and learn how to do that, after you kill it, how to clean it and prepare it and all that. Like that takes a conscious decision to do that, because it's a lot easier to just go to the local Wendy's and grab a burger.
Disgusting.
And that's the other thing. It's disgusting. Like we're poisoning ourselves with our daily diet and everything.
It's a self-inflicted conspiracy against ourselves. We're conspiring against ourselves to be lazy.
Well, we are, because we allow all of these things that go against nature to be so accessible to us, like the fast, there was a time, and I'm about to start doing this again because I need to, but I a couple of years ago decided I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to cut out sugar.
Cutting sugar out
too long.
That's all right.
Keep going.
I'm going to cut sugar out of my diet.
Sounds good.
And
does that include beer?
I don't really do a lot of drinking anymore, but at the time, no, it didn't. Because at the time I never really had a drink of anything at that point. Now I'll have one because now I live in a tourist town and there's a lot of restaurants, and because of this show, people like to take me out to dinner. So I'll have a beer with a burger or something. But yeah, that will include that when I start doing it again. But anyway, so when I did that, you don't realize how the odds are stacked against you, or the deck is stacked against you, I guess is the proper metaphor, until you try to cut out certain things from your diet. And then you go to grab something on the run that you have to eat while you're driving. So like, eating a salad in a to-go container is hard enough to do when you're sitting still at a table. But now try doing that while you're driving. It's never going to happen.
I'll tell you the things I do while I'm driving. Salads, nothing. Bowls of chili, soup. I'm not joking.
How do you do that?
I would have to take you for a ride to show you. I mean, I can't describe this on an online episode. I'm going to have people looking for me. But you're right. Well, that's like I travel a lot, and I have if I fly somewhere, as soon as I get my rental car, I figure out where I'm sleeping, and then I hit like a grocery store on the way. And guys that train with me know I show up with radishes, bell peppers, carrots. I usually get like some mozzarella cheese sticks, and I'll grab a dozen eggs, and I boil some eggs, and I take that in the cooler to the range with me, and that's what I munch on: hard-boiled egg and some carrots, and maybe I'll grab some broccoli if they got some good broccoli, and clementines, little clementines. Those are nice. But gallon of water, golden.
Yeah, I try to go to the during the spring, summer, and fall. We have a farmers market every Saturday here out in town, and I try to go to that as much as I can. I'll tell you, the difference between grocery store bought produce and fresh, locally grown produce is insane. And I didn't discover that until this past year. I love Brussels sprouts.
Me too.
And yeah, and I don't know why people don't like them. But I think I figured out why. Because I got them from a local farm. They looked different than they do in the store.
Green, very green, and it was on a stalk still.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and so I bring them home and I prepare them, and
tender.
They're like 10, and also 10 times the flavor of what you get at the store. Same thing I found out with asparagus and broccoli. And I was like, holy shit, this is what vegetables taste like?
Yeah. We had a fresh asparagus patch on the farm growing up, and you just eat it all spring when it popped out of the ground. You just pick it up and eat it. Yeah, it's delicious.
I love asparagus.
Tender and
sweet. And that's really
what.
Well, that's the only thing I don't like about it. That's the thing about asparagus, though. Not asparagus.
I thought this
eating vegetables and everything.
Be serious. This has gone down the
We're talking about stinky pea. No, so it is hard to eat healthy when you want to eat healthy on the run. So what you described there, that's what I got to start doing, is like bringing that stuff with me.
Yeah, just do it.
And the funny thing is, this is how bad the sugar and sodium and all the unhealthy stuff is. Like, if you can actually get through a week of eating,
that's a cool company. I'll let you finish your point and I'll tell you what it is.
Okay. If you can actually get through a week of eating healthy, whatever that is to you, for me, it's cutting bread and sugar out.
Yeah.
You feel like $1 million within that week. Usually down. After oh my God, everything goes down. You feel like you got energy. You feel like you're 16 again. And maybe you keep it up for 3 months or 6 months or something. Now, here's what happens to me. This is where I stumble all the time.
Bread me.
So somebody goes, hey, you lost a lot of weight. And I go, thanks.
I can go.
And I go, you know what? First thing I go to is pizza. I'm like, let's go get pizza tonight. We're going to celebrate. I haven't had pizza in 6 months. And then that's where it starts. So then it's like, okay, well, now I could have pizza once a week or twice, or I can have whatever I want once a week. And then it goes, well, okay, once a week, but it's also, I had my once a week yesterday, but it's Tommy's birthday today. So twice a week, but I'll just, eat less on, whatever. It's a big, stupid thing.
Cake.
You like cake?
I'm just saying, it's a birthday party. Hook it up.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Well, and the fact that you have bicycles that you don't have to pedal. Now you're
that's the worst.
Calories.
Because when I go out, that's what I use, is the electric bike.
It's too cool, man.
But actually, though, you still get a workout. You get like half the workout.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So it's like, instead of jumping rope for 20 minutes, I jump rope for 10. So
right. Yeah. If I ride a regular bike 15 miles, I'd have to do 30 on the electric bike to get the same workout. And that's totally unscientific. I'm making that up, but
I know you are. Dude, I'm riding around that park and I'm looking at my daughter. I'm like, we're climbing up the steep hills and stuff, going like passing cars. I'm like, this is incredible. I've never rode one of these. I'm like, no wonder people buy these things. Yeah.
They're cool. They're so much better now than those models that you were riding. Like,
really,
we still have those models, but yeah, there's because we see people all the time, unloading their bikes from their cars, and then they'll come over and ask us for a map or something, and they have they got these really cool bikes now. The only thing is, I don't think they go as fast. Like ours are an early model. And
pre-carrying up, they want to sell off speed, not off safety.
Yes. And so there's no governor on it. So you could go like 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Which they're not really built to be going 30 miles an hour. like it's too rigid. There's no shocks on it. There's no, I mean, the slightest little thing, when you get up to about 30 miles an hour going down a hill on that thing, the slightest thing can just, knock you off.
Did you ever see the video that we posted on our YouTube channel of my trip to Gettysburg? And I'm on your bike. I'm riding around like that, filming with my phone in one hand, riding a bike.
Oh, yeah, that's not good. Not on those bikes.
It's all over YouTube.
No, I never saw that.
I'll send you a link. This company, they don't pay me to talk about it, but they take care of me. It's a company called 88 Acres, 88 Acres, the seed company. This is just like really quality stuff. Like this one's got pumpkin seeds, banana, rice, sea salt, cinnamon, sunflower oil. They owner of the company found out he was allergic to nuts. So they made this product that is, it's not just that, they make all kinds of stuff. They make butters that are made with seeds. So looks like you're out of gas, huh? You got to bring the 20 pounder in.
Well, we have an adapter to the 20 pounder, but I haven't hooked it up yet because so here's the thing that's so great about what we're doing here with Addressing Gettysburg is the people that listen to it are really supportive. And when we built this studio, I had some old equipment because I've been doing, hang on a second.
The people that listen to Addressing Gettysburg, I don't know what it is. I mean, I feel very lucky, but it's like a great group of people that we've attracted. And, when we built our studio, I had a lot of equipment because I've been doing podcasts for 10 years. So I've accumulated equipment over the time and bought some new equipment in the last year or so. And however, when you get everything out of storage and you build your studio and you set it up and you realize, I got to get this thing and that thing. And sometimes it's little things, sometimes it's big things. But then sooner or later you realize, I'm going to go through all my savings if I get all this stuff now.
Sure.
And then I remembered they have these things on Amazon, these called wish lists. And so I have a Patreon account, and I created a wish list. Honestly, not expecting anybody maybe a couple people to get a couple things over the course of a year or something like that, but not really get anything immediately. So I made the wish list. I put things on it, and then I shared it on Patreon. And within 5 minutes, someone's like, "Can I just send you money directly?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay."
And then a couple minutes later, someone's like, "Okay, enjoy the new
OnlyFans or whatever page you're talking about here."
No, but it was inspired by what I see those people doing. But no, so then a couple minutes later, somebody's like, "Well, enjoy your new headphones and enjoy this," and
that's awesome.
And next thing you know, like for basically the month of November, I had at least one package show up at my door every day until about middle of December.
That's awesome.
It is, because we were able to basically build a new computer for the studio. And then somebody tells me, so one of the things I put on the wish list is this like $420 microphone that I don't expect anybody to get, but I look at it as like I call it a pipe dream edition, right?
You found a loophole.
I found a loophole, right? No, so I figure like maybe there's somebody, some rich old lady or old man who's got no family and a lot of money, and right, needs the corns shaved off of his feet, and says, I like what this kid's doing. I like what this kid's doing, and I'm
gonna buy him a microphone.
Go buy him a microphone, right?
Send me a picture of your feet, Matt. God damn it, I sent you a microphone. I want that foot picture. Drew's going to be editing this, just going like, oh, son of a
I like
bitch.
it all. The other day, I get this email from a listener, and he said, he said, you should be getting that that Rode microphone that you had in the wish list. He's like, I know what it's like to not have the right equipment to do your thing.
Awesome.
Merry Christmas. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I don't know. I mean, you have a much bigger following than I do. Do you get people doing nice things for you and giving you stuff and saying really nice things about you?
I am completely amazed at the amount of assholes that are in the world, but I am also always amazed by how kind and generous. I've got nothing against it. I don't have a wish list on Amazon or anything like that, but I have, like, I can look around here and see things that people have sent us. Just sometimes it's like, hey, I want you to have this because I hope you share it on a video. But sometimes it's just really cool stuff. But more important than stuff is the messages, man. I'll get stuff that I don't share with people. I know there's guys that are in our position that they share that stuff. And the way I look at it is like, that was sent to me or my wife. Like that was, and I could block the person's name out, but it's like, I don't want to pat myself on
yes,
the back.
no, I know exactly what you mean. Cause
somebody had said that to me the other day, a friend of mine, my best friend, he kind of started this with me, but he's in another state. So he's kind of like a silent partner. He's not actually on the show. But somebody sent me this really great email and I had to share with somebody. So I, took a screenshot of it and I sent it to him and he's like, wow, he goes, you should start reading these on the show. And I go, no, I don't feel right doing that. I feel like you say, it's patting yourself on the back. Also, like, these people, they sent it to me, it's personal. It's something that someone shares with me and I don't feel it's my right to go and share it with other people. I also think it's kind of just like classless to share it with other people. Because you're right. It's a humble brag. You're putting it's somebody else's words, but you're reading it to your audience.
Think about me.
Right.
I save that stuff for myself and I print them. I spread them out around the living room. They're laminated so they can get wet, and I cover myself in baby oil from time to time, and I roll in my accolades. No, that's a joke. Actually, on a serious note, when I was going through a very dark place in my life and didn't feel that I had any value or worth to the world and felt like I was a continual and perpetual failure, I started to really refine, at the simplest level, what is it that's lacking? And I had no self-power, I thought, and things that I had tried to do that I feel were good things while I would earn a living. I felt like I was trying to do things that did make the world better. Because I was arrogant and stupid and just dumb a lot of the time. And I started to think about what's missing, and I couldn't fill in the blanks. So I just started to talk to myself, in the shower, or I'd be on a construction site unloading drywall, and I just talk as I was moving things. I put music in my headphones, and I was the boss, so I was allowed to do this. And I'd mumble literally sometimes 10,000 times in a day. And I don't share this often, but people have heard me say it. And it's not a brag. I mean, it kind of makes me sound like a lunatic, but I'd say I move men's hearts and minds with my words and actions. And at this point, I was starting to try to affect some change in government. I was going to people hat in hand, please, hear my pleas, and why would they listen to me? But I started to say, I move men's hearts and minds with my words and actions. And I'd say that. And I didn't know, and this isn't some pie in the sky bullshit. Just say it and shit'll happen. That's not what.
Right. Build it and they will come.
Yeah. I'm not saying something stupid like that. There's much more to the story, but from time to time I'll get a letter or something like that. And the first thing that pops in my head is me being a bitch, sitting crying because life sucks and I can't, sort it out. But then this is the moving of somebody's heart with my words and actions. That's it, man. That's it. And so, yes, the world is full of many. I have a couple of family members that are musicians. One of them was sent a very expensive PA system by a fan that would see them in concert and was like, you need a better live performance PA, thousands of dollars. One of them got a very nice guitar, like top of the line American acoustic guitar maker, several $1,000 guitar. And I think there's, to some of us, you know, a couple grand's like, wow, that's a mortgage payment or a vacation or hell, a new car for some people. But to some people, a couple G's, you know.
I know that's what's so amazing is that people would be willing. You know, I mean, like $420 for me, like, you know, that's you know, I like, if I'm gonna spend that, I'm gonna spend it on something for myself. Like, I'm not gonna spend it on
selfish. Yes, man.
I'm very selfish, but I'm not gonna spend it on someone. You know, like I don't. To me,
well, you're in a different spot. That'd be like you giving somebody $10 maybe, or $50.
Well, no. It's not that. That's not what I mean. It's
okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to demean your income by my statement.
No.
I mean, you aren't in a shed with a.
I'm a millionaire. I just choose to live Spartan, a Spartan life. And that's why we're in a shed with a propane tank. Just cheaper. Yeah. I want to have more money for retirement. So, no, what I'm saying is that to me, to go and pay $18 to see a movie in a theater is a lot of money. Like, not because I don't make a lot, it's because I can't rationalize it as being worth $18. So, and I'm glad people do it, but I don't understand what people see in me that they are willing to spend that kind of money, any kind of money, on the things I do. I'm so glad they do. I'm very grateful for it. I feel
you're providing a value that they see, and if you don't, that's okay.
No, I know it's okay. I mean, it's going to have to be okay because I don't know if I'll ever really see it.
But, you know what I'm saying? I just mean, like, hey, you're providing value, man. That's great.
No, and that's good, and that's what I set out to do. See, this is the thing. I'm so used to failing that when I've actually said, here's what I want to accomplish with Addressing Gettysburg, and then each one of those things happened, it doesn't feel real to me. I don't feel a sense of accomplishment because I feel like it's fleeting.
You're waiting for the bottom to fall out or something.
Yes, the bottom to fall out, the rug to be ripped out from under me. And
but now, since you know how to do it, if and when that happens, you just pick yourself up and do it again. You know.
Yeah, I think you keep going. You just keep going. You keep going. That's why I love one of my favorite generals in the Civil War is General Grant, Ulysses S. Grant, and. The reason why is because the guy failed in everything that he did before the war. He was and then by the time he's dead, he's a former president. So the war comes and he finally finds his niche. You know, he was in the service beforehand, but he wasn't, you know, I mean, he did some pretty cool things during the Mexican War and everything, but like he didn't rise all the way up to general before the war began. And, you know, that was afterward. I believe he actually resigned before the war began and then came back when it started. And he worked his way up as a general. What I like about Grant is there's a story from the Battle of Shiloh. And it's a 2-day battle. The first day, the Union Army gets pushed back, beaten pretty bad. And General Sherman, William Tecumseh Sherman, goes up to Grant. I think he's like leaning up against a tree or something like that. And he says something like, well, Grant, we've had the devil's own day today, haven't we? And Grant just says, yeah, lick 'em in the morning, though. And got up the next day and pushed the Confederates back and licked them in the morning. So his attitude was always that when that was out west. Later in 1864, when he's brought out here to the east, he just kind of has this like bulldog grip on Lee's army, and he just wears them down. And he's constantly moving his army, but they have a battle, and he doesn't sit there and lick his wounds like previous generals had done. And they sit there for, the Battle of Shiloh. No, sorry, the Battle of Sharpsburg, Antietam, takes place in the middle of September. McClellan, who was the Union Army commander then, he stays there till like the end of October and starts to move his army back into Virginia, I think early November, something like that. Grant, on the other hand, they had this big bloody battle, and he goes, all right, move by the left flank. And they move by the left flank. So now Lee has got to counter that move because they're trying to get to Richmond. So it's all these, he just wears them down. He had more men, he could do it. But he didn't sit there and go, oh, look what happened to us and everything. And it just keeps on going. And that, I think, is what you have to do. You just have to be determined. And you don't have to be eccentric. You don't have to be out there and outlandish or anything like that. Slow and steady wins the race. Just keep on going. Don't forget why you started. I think that's a thing I'm afraid of, is if this does get to be, just a little bit of success that I've achieved in the last year. And, you go into a restaurant or something, or you're just walking around town or going on the battlefield and somebody comes up to you and they're like, you Matt from Addressing Gettysburg? And I go, yeah. And and they say all these really nice things. It's kind of uncomfortable, but I also kind of like it,
Can I see your feet?
Yeah. I sent you a pair of headphones. I was wondering if I could see your feet.
But you asked for that. I think that
you do ask for that, but the thing is, when you get it, it's uncomfortable because you're not used to it.
So when you get people coming up and saying nice things to you, at first it's very uncomfortable because you're just like, I go home to me every day and there's really nothing remarkable about me. Like, I see myself naked in the mirror. There's nothing remarkable about me. But you appreciate the fact that they're doing it. At first you just don't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to handle it. And so you got to kind of think, okay, this can be intoxicating. I can become addicted to being recognized and just go and try to be recognized, And, but that's not why I started doing this. Because that was the last thing I expected to happen when I started doing this. I started doing this so that I can learn so that I can take the guide exam and pass it. That's why I started doing it. The second reason I started doing it was that other people who are interested in this stuff can coalesce around it, and we can go and we can tour the battlefield together and we can learn together. So we're going to create a community of people who are nerdy about this. Getty's nerds, I call them. And we're going to go and we're going to do this together. It's not going to be every man for himself. We're going to kind of like make ourselves our own little class or whatever. And both of those things, the last thing I expected either one of them to bring me was people recognizing me. But I mean, I knew there was a chance of that, but it wasn't a goal. And so I had to remind myself when it started becoming kind of cool, as much as it was uncomfortable, then I would be like, okay, that's not why you did this. If you start worrying more about that than the content that you're putting out, then nobody's going to be around. You're going to lose your listeners.
Been so much with people.
Right. Because fame, one of the Rangers here, he's very popular on YouTube and stuff because he, before coronavirus, during the summer, the Park Service puts on Ranger walks. And he's from Mississippi. He's got this Southern accent. He's got this way of talking about the battle and history and tying it in with a modern cultural reference or something. And people just like the way he is. And so, all the videos that the Park Service has out there, his have hundreds of thousands of views while all the others have like tens of thousands. So he and I have become friends, and we were out on the battlefield at one point. It was like, 6:30 at night in the summer. And I had just been driving by and I saw him there, and he was in uniform and he was talking to a guy. And so I went over to say hi to him. I hadn't seen him in a while. And so we're talking with this fella, and I forget what it was, but I made some kind of reference. His name is Matt too. And I made some kind of reference to his fame, as like a joke. The guy we were talking to for the last 20 minutes or whatever, he turns to me when I say that, and he goes, "Well, I know you too." And I go, "You do?" And he goes, "Yeah, I recognize your voice." I'm like, "Get out of here." And he's like, "Yeah, you're Addressing Gettysburg, right?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I listened to your show." He's like, "Oh, I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool." So while we're talking, we notice these other two guys that are kind of circling us like sharks, and they keep looking over. So I assume, it's because they see Matt there, the other Matt.
Fanboys.
So me and Matt and this guy decide, it's dinner time. Matt's shift is over. Let's go get something to eat. So we start walking towards our cars, and we now cross paths with these other two guys that were circling, and they call Matt's attention. And so we go over and he says hi to them, and we're all talking again. And again, there's another opportunity for me to make a joke about the fame that he has. And one guy goes, "Well, I know you too, Matt." And I go, "Really? Another one?" And he goes, "Yeah."
Jokes. This wasn't you trying to create an opportunity for them to say, "Matt, I know you too."
How the hell did you figure that out?
Yeah. I see.
Damn it.
It's like Oh, wait, is that where you were going with this?
No.
Did I just steal the punchline?
No,
the punchline?
Not at all. No, this was all real. And so we invited these other two guys to dinner with us because we were all hungry. And as we're walking to our cars, Matt comes over to me in my car. He goes, "I just want you to know that fame is fleeting. And when it's all over, I'll still be your friend."
That's funny.
And I said, "Good." I said, "Likewise, Matt. Likewise."
That's funny stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. I think we could talk. You could make a whole podcast about Gettysburg, and we could talk about Gettysburg all the time, which is what you did. So you guys that have listened, we covered a lot of different topics and ground here in these couple hours. You can go check out Matt's podcast, which they can find where, Matthew?
You can find it pretty much everywhere that you can find a podcast. The most popular, of course, is the Apple Podcast app, and Stitcher, and what's that other one? Spotify. But there are apps that we're
Google
on.
Play.
Yeah, all of those. Libsyn.
Just punch in.
Just Google Addressing Gettysburg. If you're on your phone, if you're on the iPhone, just go to the podcast app or whatever app you use. Anywhere you find podcasts, you can find us there. Even on YouTube, we're going to start doing YouTube videos this year. We're on Instagram. I do live videos once in a while from the battlefield or my porch. And
is that Addressing Gettysburg on Instagram, correct?
It's Addressing Gettysburg on Instagram, and it's Addressing Gettysburg on Facebook. Those are the only two. We don't do Twitter. I started a Twitter years ago, but Twitter's such a cesspool that I don't bother going there.
Jeez.
So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, those are the three big ones there. But yeah, if you want to see, especially during the summer, I'll go out on the battlefield and I'll do live videos from a certain place. We'll talk about it a little bit. And then we'll just shoot the shit. And then also sometimes I'll just sit out on my porch and we do what we call a porch chat. And now during the winter, because it's too cold to be on the porch, I do them in the studio. I do a studio chat and we just sit and talk, and I just answer the comments and talk about whatever. We don't necessarily talk about Gettysburg.
Size 11 and a half. That was one of the questions. I think it's great, man. I think that it's wonderful that you have done something that makes you feel good and are passionate about, and you are proliferating history of our great nation that sometimes is not happy and pretty, but has brought us to where we're at, man.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for the invite.
Of course. I knew when I met you a couple years ago in that parking lot, we were going to get back together again.
Yeah, well, I really like I like what you do. I follow you on Instagram, and I like your videos. I like your style, like your swagger and everything. I like the way you do it, and I like the no nonsense way you speak, because people are so full of nonsense now. It's nice to hear a guy that just is no nonsense.
Oh, I'm full of a lot of bullshit too, Matt. But
well, no, I know, and that's what's cool about you. And I have a couple of guns, and but I haven't shot my guns in
those
years,
are muskets.
Yeah. No, I do like the antiques though. I like the cowboy era.
Okay.
Lever actions and revolvers and things like that. So, but I haven't gone out and shot in so long, and I don't know. So I like to watch your videos, and when you do the
next
things
time
where
I
you're
see you, we'll do some shooting. I'll be in Pennsylvania this summer.
Where are you going?
We do a class up in Denver, Lancaster County. It's a few hours
Denver.
From you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, you try to make some time to come to Gettysburg. I'll take you around the battlefield, like on a tour.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be.
Give
my friend Paul.
Pencil in a little extra time.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. You guys that watched, if you like this podcast, share it. If you learned something and you want to know more, dig into it. All this information's out there. Do be weary of bad info, but history is amazing, and it is literally the roadmap to how we got here. And I think it's imperative that we don't just remember it, but learn the lessons from it. Matthew, thank you so very much. Those of you that joined in, don't be dickheads. Go tell somebody you love them. Peace out. Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com.
I said I got me some gunfighter gun law. Gunfighter gun law, baby. Gunfighter gun law, no more gunfighter blues. Made in the USA, amazing lubricity, 100% synthetic, baby. So it's gonna last you longer. So go on carrytrainer.com and order yourself some gunfighter gun or gunfighter lube to get rid of your gunfighter blues. I said go on and order yourself some gunfighter